Sirens carved the night, while cameras screamed like gulls, and the first headline hit phones before the cuffs clicked. Lena Vale said this is a mistake, but the words tasted like rust. Flashbulbs tore her face into fragments of gold and gilt. Detective Nora Hale said, "Keep your hands visible," and the crowd shoved closer. Maya Brooks kept whispering, "Stay calm," yet her eyes kept hunting exits. Riley Stone barked questions that cut like glass. Adrian Cole lingered in the shadows, jaw tight, phone dark, heart unreadable. A gavel cracked on every feed as producers shouted for blood. A drone whirred above the courthouse steps, thirsty for ruin. Lena met the lens like it owed her a favor, then flinched as boos rose. Nora read charges in a voice without edges. Lena said, "You don't know me," and the street answered with laughter. Somewhere behind the barricade, Ethan Park froze, remembering a door he never should have opened. The crowd wanted confession, not truth. Then the whisper broke like a bone. This was not a tantrum. This was fraud, laundering and betrayal with a charity's smile. Phones shook like leaves, and every channel looped the cuffs while pundits warmed their knives. Riley Stone said, "America loves a rise, but it worships a fall," and producers nodded into earpieces. Old clips of Lena glittered across timelines, then cracked under bold red banners. Maya Brooks said, "Legal will handle this," but her voice sounded rented. Hashtags bloomed like oil on water, dark and iridescent. A neighbor swore they heard shouting last week. A brand paused a campaign mid-print. Nora Hale watched the chatter for tells, not sympathy. Lena sat on a plastic chair under buzzing lights and stared at the floor. Adrian Cole did not text. Ethan Park scrolled, then locked his phone like it might bite. The city fed on rumor, and the rumor grew teeth. Somewhere, a charity ledger waited for daylight. And under the din, a question formed, lean and sharp as wire. Who had placed the first knife, and who would twist it last? Comment sections boiled like tar while influencers posted prayers between ads. Lena Vale said, "Turn it off," and the officer left the TV on. A meme crowned her with thorns of credit cards. A clip from an awards night resurfaced where she thanked a charity that never kept its books clean. Maya Brooks said, "We need a statement," and swallowed the rest. Nora Hale sifted interviews and saw the same smile rehearsed to death. Riley Stone called it a reckoning and ordered a split-screen debate. Ethan Park replayed a memory of a midnight pickup and a heavy duffel bag. Adrian Cole ghosted the sunrise. The city's appetite widened, then sharpened to a point. The brand partnerships fell like dominoes, each thud a little funeral. Somewhere, a ledger whispered names. And the phones kept buzzing, because outrage never sleeps when it smells money. The cell door hummed shut, and silence settled like dust. Lena Vale said, "You think I'm the monster?" And the guard answered nothing. Her reflection in the plexiglass looked expensive and frightened. Maya Brooks stood in a hallway counting breaths, each one a negotiation with fate. Riley Stone prepped a segment called "The Lie That Bought a Mansion." Nora Hale laid files on a metal table that smelled like bleach and thunder. Ethan Park hovered near a pay station, torn between fear and duty. Adrian Cole paced a penthouse, tracing the outline of a deal that had curdled. The city dimmed, but the story burned brighter. Lena closed her eyes and saw glitter raining on a runway, then turning into ash. She said, "Tell them I cooperated to no one." Somewhere, an error became evidence. Somewhere, a promise became a blade. The first reveal slid into the feed with a surgeon's calm. A charity gala photo, then a spreadsheet, then a whistle in the comments that became a siren. Riley Stone said, "Follow the donors," and producers pivoted. Nora Hale circled 3 transfers with an ink-black pen. Lena Vale stared at the stamp on the paperwork and bit the inside of her cheek. Maya Brooks said, "We vetted that," and her voice fell through a trapdoor. Ethan Park remembered the garage, the envelope, the look that said never ask. Adrian Cole poured a drink, and watched his reflection fracture in the glass. The crowd shifted from shock to hunger. This was not a tantrum. This was a pattern. And the door that had been only rumor swung wide enough for every camera to walk through. The night decided what the morning would believe. Long before the cuffs, the lights loved her. Lena Vale said, "Every flash is a crown," as photographers bent their knees to catch her angles. She had walked runways like they were rivers of fire. She signed her first contract at 19 and told Maya Brooks, "We made it," while tears streaked champagne gloss. Brands carved her initials into neon, and fans carved them into skin. Riley Stone once called her a generational beauty on live TV before he sharpened the knife. Adrian Cole promised her the city, every rooftop party and midnight deal, and she believed. Ethan Park drove her from sets where roses stacked like bricks and music never stopped. Nora Hale, watching old reels now, saw a girl trying to outshine her own shadow. The city adored her charm, the laugh rehearsed to feel unrehearsed. Lena had everything: laughter, diamonds, lovers, envy, yet the hunger never left her. Even at the height, her eyes kept looking for the next crown. The rise was meteoric, and headlines dripped with her name. Lena Vale said, "I'm the moment," in an interview where her eyes sparkled harder than her diamonds. Maya Brooks handled contracts that grew thicker with every month, whispering, "Sign here, it's ours." Riley Stone narrated her victories like sermons, each headline dripping with worship. Adrian Cole appeared beside her on carpets, his hand a claim more than comfort. Fans roared, waving banners, their chants lifting her higher. Ethan Park ferried her through airports where screams drowned announcements. Nora Hale looked at the record years later, not for glory, but for motive. The world adored the glamour but ignored the cracks. Behind velvet ropes, Lena's smile sharpened when the cameras turned away. She said, "They'll never forget me," and believed it. In those days the empire seemed eternal, too bright to dim. But even suns burn out. Admiration poured like rainfall, heavy and endless. Brands fought for her image, fans wept when she waved. Lena Vale said, "They love me like a dream," into Maya Brooks' ear. Maya replied, "I'd follow you into fire," but her eyes carried worry. Riley Stone wrote glowing features that built her legend brick by brick. Adrian Cole, in whispers, kept asking her to trust him, to let him manage more. Ethan Park caught her at the back doors, shielding her from the swarm of flashes. Nora Hale, then just another detective scrolling headlines, noted the pattern of too much too fast. The city adored her like a queen and devoured her like prey. She laughed at parties, a laugh that masked fatigue. She danced at galas, steps that masked bruises no one saw. Lena Vale said, "I can't stop now," as if halting would mean death. The higher she soared, the thinner the air grew. Cracks formed quietly, like glass under pressure. Lena Vale signed deals too quickly, voice shaking with adrenaline. She said, "It's just one more," as Maya Brooks frowned. Adrian Cole pushed for bigger risks, promising control and safety. Riley Stone noticed the sudden disappearances of allies and began asking questions. Ethan Park drove through alleys where no cameras waited, glancing in the mirror too often. Nora Hale later traced signatures that smelled like desperation, not strategy. The crowd still screamed, but whispers threaded behind them. Lena ignored warning signs, chasing applause like oxygen. She said, "Everything's under control," but her hand trembled as she wrote. Maya said, "You're stretching too thin," and Lena smiled instead of answering. The hunger was louder than the caution. Behind the glitter, Betrayal began whispering. The foreshadow came quietly, almost kindly. At a gala, Lena Vale smiled while whispers curled like smoke. Riley Stone reported, "Not all gold is clean," and cameras cut the line. Adrian Cole leaned close and said, "You trust me, don't you?" Maya Brooks overheard and froze. Ethan Park glimpsed Lena slipping into a side room with a stranger carrying ledgers. Nora Hale would later mark that night as the beginning. Lena raised her glass, toast bright, eyes darker. She said to loyalty, and everyone clapped, though loyalty already frayed. The crowd saw glitter. The truth wore shadows. And somewhere in the applause, betrayal made its first bow. Pressure turned meetings into battlegrounds, and smiles into armor. Lena Vale said, "We tighten the circle," and the room shrank by an inch. Maya Brooks said, "You need distance from Adrian," but the word distance felt radioactive. Adrian Cole paced the glass wall and said, "We move, or we die," while the city glittered below like a trap. Riley Stone teased a segment called Cracks in the Halo, and ratings purred. Ethan Park lingered at the door, holding a courier box that hummed with bad luck. Nora Hale reviewed subpoenas that waited like storm clouds. The team spoke in half sentences and swallowed the rest. Trust thinned to threads you could floss with. Lena said no leaks, and someone flinched too fast. Contracts stacked like cliffs no one wanted to climb. The future looked rich and short. In the silence between calls, fear learned their names. The tabloids smelled blood and wrote hymns to ruin. Riley Stone said, "Sources confirm nighttime cash drops, and producers fed the fire." Lena Vale said, "It is noise, but the noise learned rhythm." Maya Brooks drafted a denial and shredded it twice. Adrian Cole said, "We counter with a charity event," and the table went quiet. Nora Hale traced pseudonyms that mirrored each other like evil twins. Ethan Park remembered a parking lot that never had cameras until that one night. Fans argued in threads that cut deeper than knives. Brands issued statements that thanked her and walked away. Lena scrolled and scrolled until the words blurred into one long bruise. She said, "We will reset," and the room pretended to believe. Outside, rain turned the street into a mirror that showed only cracks. The paparazzi learned her roots like a prayer. Lena Vale said, "No back entrance," and stepped into a tunnel of lenses. Flash popped like small explosions, and composure became choreography. Maya Brooks said, "Keep your head down," but pride lifted Lena's chin. Adrian Cole held her elbow, a gesture that read ownership on camera. Riley Stone prepped a frame by frame, calling it the night walk. Ethan Park shouldered past barricades, shielding her with his body. Nora Hale watched the footage later and marked 3 faces that never blinked. Questions flew like birds that refused to land. Lena said, "I owe no one," and the crowd laughed. The car door stuck, the night pressed in, and the roar grated into a hiss. Even the moon looked complicit. The sellout came soft, like a cough in a cathedral. A friend walked in with old photos, and left with a check. Riley Stone said, "Exclusive," and the word sounded like a gong. Lena Vale stared at the screen, and said, "He was family," and the room tasted metal. Maya Brooks said, "We can sue, but the law moves slow when shame moves fast." Adrian Cole said nothing, which sounded loud. Ethan Park messaged a warning that arrived an hour too late. Nora Hale cataloged the images, noting what they showed and what they didn't. The past lost its velvet and gained teeth. Laughter in the photos looked rehearsed and haunted. Deals twitched on the verge of death. Lena said, "I will not beg," and the decision cost another friend by dawn. The phone call arrived like a door slamming in an empty house. Lena Vale said, "Put it on speaker," and air left the room. A voice offered names, dates, a drop location, and a price. Maya Brooks whispered, "This is a trap," and the whisper felt like prophecy. Adrian Cole said, "We can fix it," but his tone carried nails. Riley Stone rehearsed a segment about midnight wires. Ethan Park waited in a car that smelled like rain and fear. Nora Hale listened on a tapped line and wrote a single word: escalate. The voice ended with a time and a warning. Lena stared at the silent phone as if it might grow teeth. She said, "We go," and the silence agreed. Outside, thunder made a promise it intended to keep. The truth ripped open like fabric in fire. Lena Vale said, "You think you know me," as screens bled headlines of offshore accounts. Maya Brooks whispered, "We can't cover this," her hands shaking over printouts. Adrian Cole said, "This is controlled," but his eyes betrayed panic. Riley Stone narrated the revelations with relish, each sentence a nail in her coffin. Ethan Park remembered a night in the garage with duffels too heavy for fashion. Nora Hale said, "This is more than scandal. This is crime," as she pinned names to her board. The charity facade collapsed under the weight of numbers that did not lie. Lena Vale said, "They'll never prove intent," but her voice cracked. The circle that once felt loyal now looked fractured beyond repair. Every whisper, every secret deal, every midnight exchange now had daylight claws. And the cameras caught her flinch. The lover's mask cracked with violence hidden in whispers. Adrian Cole said, "Without me, you're nothing," his voice wrapped in smoke and menace. Lena Vale said, "I built this," but her hands trembled. Maya Brooks caught the glance, fear sparking recognition. Riley Stone aired rumors of ties to men who dealt power like weapons. Ethan Park recalled seeing Adrian's handoff to strangers with guarded cars. Nora Hale dug deeper, finding names that linked to syndicates. The scandal bloomed into danger with a face and address. Lena Vale said, "You wouldn't dare," but his silence was a blade. For the first time, the empire looked not only broken but lethal. In the reflection of the window, the glamorous image dissolved into fear. The charity that had sparkled became proof of rot. Lena Vale once smiled with oversized checks. Now those images burned online beside bank statements. Riley Stone said, "It was never about helping, it was laundering," and the crowd echoed his tone. Maya Brooks whispered, "We signed off," her voice shaking. Adrian Cole said, "Numbers are just smoke," but smoke choked the air. Ethan Park remembered deliveries to offices with locked doors. Nora Hale connected transfers across borders, each one a knot in the noose. Lena Vale said, "They'll spin this," but her own reflection stared back with guilt. Every logo turned away, every donor vanished. The brand was not beauty anymore. It was fraud with mascara. When the walls closed in, loyalty split. Lena Vale caught Maya Brooks burning documents, her face streaked with tears. Lena said, "What are you doing?" And Maya whispered, "I can't drown with you." Adrian Cole walked in silent, watching paper curl into flame. Riley Stone's voice on TV thundered about disappearing evidence. Ethan Park sent one more warning, fingers trembling. Nora Hale said, "Their cleaning house," as shredders hummed in the background of tapped calls. Lena Vale said, "You were supposed to protect me," but Maya turned away. The silence felt louder than any betrayal. The flames ate paper, but truth already escaped. The investigator finally saw the monster under the mask. Nora Hale said, "This isn't glamour. This is organized crime," her words steel. She pinned photos, charts, names in red string. Lena Vale laughed on camera, a hollow echo against headlines. Riley Stone shouted to cameras, "The truth is uglier than we imagined," and the world leaned closer. Maya Brooks stared at her hands as if guilt had inked them. Adrian Cole vanished into shadows, leaving debts that carried teeth. Ethan Park, silent in his car, felt the weight of what he knew. Lena Vale said, "I'll never go down," but her voice no longer convinced anyone. The mask was gone, and the storm had only begun. The arrest played out like theater, each flash a dagger. Lena Vale said, "You don't own me," as steel cuffs bit her wrists before the courthouse. Maya Brooks wept behind tinted glasses, whispering, "This isn't how it ends." Adrian Cole stepped back, his polished shoes retreating from the spotlight. Riley Stone shouted into his mic, "The empire collapses tonight," as anchors nodded across the country. Nora Hale held the warrant aloft, steady as stone, her voice loud enough to drown the chants. Ethan Park froze at the barricade, memories clawing his chest. "Ain't." The crowd's jeers rolled like thunder. Lena Vale lifted her chin for the cameras, a queen dethroned in real time. She said, "Smile, they're still watching," but her eyes betrayed cracks. The city, hungry and merciless, feasted on her fall. Betrayal came not from enemies, but the closest ally. Maya Brooks whispered, "I had no choice," as transcript surfaced with her signature. Lena Vale said, "You sold me," her voice breaking into shards. Adrian Cole smirked in silence, his hand already pulling away. Riley Stone said on air, the right hand turned against the Queen, and ratings surged. Nora Hale studied the documents, lips pressed thin. Ethan Park gripped the railing outside, guilt carving his skin. The courtroom gasped when evidence revealed conversations meant to stay buried. Lena Vale's breath faltered as trust dissolved into dust. Maya said, "I was saving myself," and silence swallowed the room. The trial began with gavel cracks echoing like gunshots. Riley Stone said on air, "The stage is justice, the audience the world," as lenses rolled. Lena Vale said, "This is persecution," though her hands shook. Maya Brooks avoided her gaze, drowning in her own guilt. Adrian Cole adjusted his tie, calm in chaos. Ethan Park sat in back, sweat pooling in his palms. Nora Hale said, "The evidence is overwhelming," and the jury leaned forward. Headlines screamed fraud and betrayal in crimson banners. "I'm still law." The judge's eyes never wavered. Lena Vale's defiance melted with each accusation. The trial was spectacle and execution at once. The silent witness stepped forward, voice trembling yet unshakable. Ethan Park said, "I drove the bags, I saw the ledgers, and the courtroom froze." Lena Vale whispered, "Not you," her voice cracking. Maya Brooks buried her face in her hands. Adrian Cole's eyes narrowed, sharp as razors. Riley Stone mouthed the words, "Game over," already crafting headlines. Nora Hale nodded once, the confirmation she had chased. The truth, fragile and brutal, filled the air until breathing felt heavy. Ethan's confession turned speculation into certainty. The crowd erupted outside as verdicts wrote themselves in chants. The verdict fell like a blade. The judge said guilty, and silence sliced the air before cries erupted. Lena Vale whispered, "This is not the end," her eyes burning through tears. Maya Brooks shook, shoulders collapsing inward. Adrian Cole slipped from the gallery, leaving ghosts behind. Riley Stone shouted into his mic, "The fall is complete," his words feeding every screen. Nora Hale closed her file, face carved with weary triumph. Ethan Park bowed his head, the cost written in his silence. The empire ended not with glamour, but with ashes. Yet beneath the finality, a shadow remained. Lena's whisper lingered like smoke, promising ruin was still only beginning. The empire collapsed overnight, silence swallowing once screaming halls. Lena Vale said, "It's gone," her voice hollow in the echo of luxury stripped bare. Maya Brooks stood in the ruins of contracts, shredded to dust. Adrian Cole vanished from headlines but lingered in whispers. Riley Stone reported, "The mansion sits empty, but the story still breathes." Nora Hale closed her files with no celebration, only fatigue. Ethan Park drove past the gates and felt the ghost of what he once carried. Lena Vale walked barefoot across marble that no longer glittered. She whispered, "They loved me once," as dust coated her steps. The empire, once eternal, was ash in a single dawn. The mansion was stripped of its shine, hollow walls echoing like tombs. Lena Vale ran her hand across dust-coated mirrors and whispered, "They don't see me now." Maya Brooks stood with phone in hand, watching brand emails withdraw support. Adrian Cole's face no longer appeared in tabloids, yet his silence weighed more than his words. Riley Stone said on air, "The silence speaks louder than screams." Ethan Park parked outside, staring through iron gates, uncertain if to enter. Nora Hale reviewed surveillance logs, her expression like granite. The empire was not burned. It was abandoned, left to rot where glamour once thrived. The enabler faced her guilt like a blade. Maya Brooks said, "I thought I could save you," but the words broke mid-breath. Lena Vale turned away, refusing eye contact. Riley Stone's report named Maya complicit, her silence painted as greed. Adrian Cole disappeared into shadows, leaving her holding flames. Ethan Park texted no replies, his own guilt already confessed. Nora Hale said, "You had choices," her tone final. Maya whispered, "I was loyal, but loyalty had become a chain that dragged them both under." The weight of her complicity crushed her long before the verdict did. Justice was won, but the taste was bitter. Nora Hale said, "Cases don't heal wounds," as she filed the last folder into a steel cabinet. Riley Stone's coverage branded her relentless, but she knew the cost wasn't glory. Ethan Park watched from distance, his silence punishment enough. Maya Brooks folded deeper into guilt, unable to sleep without echoes. Adrian Cole remained a phantom, his name a curse in private conversations. Lena Vale sat in shadows, staring into nothing. The case had ended, but the ripples still tore lives apart. Justice came cold, and it never came clean. Exile came quiet, not with doors slamming but with doors never opening. Lena Vale said, "I am still here," as she slipped through a back alley far from flashing cameras. Maya Brooks walked a step behind, her loyalty now only habit. Ethan Park waited in his car, headlights dimmed, ready to drive her anywhere but home. Adrian Cole's name was whispered in foreign clubs, but never confirmed. Riley Stone declared, "She lives in hiding, but the world remembers," while headlines faded into other scandals. Nora Hale closed her notebook, knowing exile carried its own sentence. Lena Vale whispered, "This is not the end," her voice sharper than the night. The story refused to die, even as headlines turned to fresher scandals. Riley Stone said, "Audiences still ask, where is she now?" And producers smiled at the clicks. Lena Vale walked streets in shadow, whispers trailing her like smoke. Maya Brooks clutched her bag tighter, loyalty now a quiet prison. Adrian Cole's name appeared in rumors, never in truth. Nora Hale read late-night updates and muttered, "The world always circles back." Ethan Park drove past the courthouse steps, haunted by the memory of cuffs. The city still feasted on fragments of her downfall, unwilling to let go. The tragic alley's ruin became collateral damage no one remembered. Maya Brooks said, "They'll forget me before they forgive you," her eyes hollow. Riley Stone's column reduced her to a footnote in Betrayal. Adrian Cole never answered her calls. Ethan Park sat in silence, his hands gripping the wheel too tightly. Nora Hale said, "She was always complicit," though the words carried regret. Lena Vale whispered, "You were mine," but distance swallowed them both. What loyalty had once built, now left her friend, broken beyond repair. The courthouse steps became her last stage. Lena Vale walked out into daylight, cameras snapping like machine guns. She said, "No comment," though silence cut sharper. Riley Stone yelled questions that echoed off marble. Maya Brooks hovered nearby, her face hidden in dark glasses. Adrian Cole's absence screamed louder than his presence. Nora Hale stood near the exit, arms folded, gaze unflinching. Ethan Park watched from the curb, unable to look away. The crowd jeered, their cheers long gone. The haunting truth settled heavy. Nora Hale said she was undone by those she trusted most, her tone flat but weighted. Riley Stone wrote, "Betrayal sells better than loyalty," and readers devoured it. Maya Brooks walked in silence, her shame carved deep. Ethan Park avoided mirrors, afraid of what looked back. Adrian Cole remained a shadow, his silence never ending. Lena Vale said, "They only remember my ruin," but even ruin carried echoes of power. The world saw betrayal, but she still saw survival. The final sting arrived not with noise, but with silence. Lena Vale whispered, "The story isn't over," her voice low as footsteps vanished into night. Maya Brooks said nothing, only followed like a shadow. Riley Stone wrote his last line, unaware of what still hid. Nora Hale closed her files, thinking justice complete. Ethan Park looked into rearview glass, her reflection a ghost behind him. Adrian Cole's name surfaced in whispers again, dangerous and alive. The world thought it had ended, but endings were illusions. What began as scandal now lingered like smoke, promising more ruin to come.